So I've asked it to create a Reddit replica that I can browse, and this is essentially going to emulate this website in real time. And when we browse around it, we'll actually be able to go ahead and see an emulated AI generated internet experience. And Anthropic has released Claude Sonnet 4.5, which they have dubbed right here in this announcement, quote unquote, the best coding model in the world. So based on that, I am extremely excited to go ahead and test this. However, I want to just go over obviously a few of the significant things of note right here in this announcement blog post. And being that this is a YouTube video covering a new release from a frontier lab, I will just spend the duration of this just rereading this article to you and not actually testing any real prompts. No, I'm kidding. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe. I should just mention that first and foremost. But with that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some things right here. Though truly, the duration of this video is going to be spent in this chat interface here, where we see that we have Sonnet 4.5 selected and are able to go ahead and begin playing with it. Now, while this announcement is predominantly just talking about Claude Sonnet 4.5, there is actually some additional, I suppose, meat in this blog post, because they do mention some cool alternative things that were released as well. Now, something I want to just make note of real quick is I scrolled down here and I saw that there was a video demonstrating something which is actually quite cool, but I do want to say this looks a lot like a browser-based operating system test. So, I'm not quite sure what to make of that. However, the prompt that actually made this, and the actual whole point of this little video right here, is they had Claude generate software on the fly. No functionality is predetermined, no code is pre-written. What you see is Claude creating in real time, responding and adapting to your requests as you interact. So that is a really interesting feature, and this is something that I've also seen in a Google blog post, a demonstration of one of the preview models, where they essentially had the model actually generating things on the fly like this as well. So this is not the first time I've seen this, but it is very prominently displayed here, which I do find very interesting. And this is a research preview of something called Imagine with Claude, which I do believe did show up right here in the bottom right corner, which may be somewhat of an issue, as that's where I usually put my head for the video, but we will try this as well. We, of course, also do have the quote-unquote benchmark JPEGs, which we can see the comparisons based off of previous Anthropic models as well as other models from state-of-the-art providers. Beyond that, they do actually mention the improved capability of this model to actually go ahead and use a computer and other style of agentic tasks. Now, this is something that I find personally extremely interesting, and most recently I tested the newly released Qwen VL model in actually controlling a computer natively, and it actually did a pretty decent job of it. So that is just a very cool kind of aspect of the whole AI or LLM things, is their ability to actually autonomously control and use computers. They do mention some additional things here which I find rather interesting, which are basically, if we scroll down a little more, the Claude Agent SDK. And I think the best way to kind of just quickly summarize this is by looking at the thumbnail photo for this YouTube video pertaining to it, where you can basically go ahead and build a bunch of agents using this SDK. I have truthfully not looked into this very deep, but upon surface level, this almost looks as if something like akin to N8N, but using Claude. And I would imagine that some very interesting things could be built with this. This may be something that I do a dedicated video on, as I do find the agentic functionality and things of that to be quite interesting. So without wasting any further time, we're basically going to go ahead now and hop into the chat tab right here, and we'll go ahead and start the browser-based operating system test. Now, being that this is touted as the best coding model in the world, I have asked it to, using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, generate a browser-based operating system. Now, if you are a common viewer of the channel, one, thank you, and two, you will be familiar with this prompt, but I am going to be judging this rather harshly, considering that they did quite prominently display this as being the best coding model in the world. So I am really looking for absolute greatness here, and nothing less will suffice. Okay, I'm just going to tell you first and foremost, this is very mid for something that is touted as the best coding model in the world. I just want to throw that out there. I'm going to go ahead and save this on my local machine as an HTML file so that we can actually go ahead and look at it natively in a browser, but I'm going to want to see some extreme tricks here before I can say this is great. And of course, we'll open it in Google Chrome, being that that's more widely supported. All right, so first and foremost, we have a smooth purplish tech gradient background, I guess would be the way to describe this. Let's try right-clicking it. Okay, there's nothing implemented there, which is a net negative, as other models have done that. The clock is correct. I did not realize it was that late. Well, that may be early. When you click it, nothing happens. So, all right, that's, I mean, par the course. Let's just go ahead and actually now kind of try to explore this. We do have a start button, which has a hover effect and a little lightning icon next to it. And quite simple, but it is elegant and clean, and I'm not noticing anything that's totally wacky or anything of the sort. So I suppose we can go ahead here and let's just see, do these have hover effects? They do, and the icons do all properly correspond to the application they are referencing. So let's try the browser. All right, something I am going to say is this is actually a cleaner result in terms of the frames in which these apps are being drawn within. Everything here looks nice. Let's see if we minimize it. Does it stay in the taskbar and reopen? It does, so that's a good quality of life. Let's go to bijanbowen.com where we can book a consultation to implement AI into our business. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like this is going to work, but that is actually a decent browser result there. Perhaps one of the better ones I've seen. We have About, which just gives us some pertinent information about browser OS. It is nice that it didn't name it after itself. Sometimes the models do name the OSs after themselves, which is, self-serving behavior. So we can see here, file manager, static, but unfortunately none of these show any additional fake items within these folders. So let's try a full screen, which did of course work, and that's nice to see. Next up, let's do a notepad. Again, clean. I can't resize these from the bottom, which is something I'm seeing less and less of. I'm not quite sure why that would be the case, but all right, this looks good. The font that it's using here for the text or notepad app is quite pretty, so that's another good thing. Let's just minimize that for now. And finally, let's take a peek at our calculator. Again, clean and attractive. Let's do 78 times 5. 390. Good. Very good. I feel like some of these buttons may be placed in alternative locations. I don't have a calculator on hand to verify, but it did not feel as natural to find the multiplication symbol as it normally does when doing this test. So perhaps something of secondary to note. And overall, as I said, let's just try to open a bunch of these. And can we open multiple instances of the apps? No, we cannot, which is good. And does the one I select jump into the focus? It does. Good. So the Z index of these windows is properly bringing them in focus. Overall, this is a satisfactory result. However, I truly have to say that I am not as impressed with this as I was anticipating. So we'll go into perhaps some more hardcore testing. So the browser OS test is rather antiquated at this point, and we're going to do something now that will be more intricate and really test the model in its raw capabilities, where we're asking it to write a web version of a 3D racing game with a few specific items denoted, such as a first-person view, a track, and an opponent car that you can race against. So this is something that is less commonly done well. To date now, I think 4 models have done an acceptable job of it, and they've all been rather high-end state-of-the-art models. So I would expect this to do an exquisite job here, and just based off of some of what we're seeing and how prominently they've listed this as basically fantastic, I would not be surprised to see a rather well-done result for this. Very, very interesting. All right, I'm going to just save this, and then we'll run it in a browser so we can actually see it full featured. But I did notice some actually fairly happy things. All right. So I went to just go ahead and download this, as every time I've done this, they just save it as an HTML file, or they provide it in HTML. This is not, so I just kind of gently asked it, hey, how do I run this? I've noticed it's not in HTML. And it basically, instead of giving me instructions, just said, don't worry, it's already loaded in the artifact window, so just play with it through there. So I suppose that's what we're going to do, and I will move my head maybe over to the left side of the screen. Now, something I do note right here, oh wow, we are quite fast. And perhaps this is the first time that the opponent car in this result has actually properly adhered to the track. Most of the times they glitch out in varying levels of severity. This is actually, well, perhaps very fast. The opponent car is following the track. We do have a decently done map. We have trees and it's very low poly, which is how the prompt asked it to be. So I will say though, this car is just it's extremely fast. I am winning, but oh no, that's the lap counter, not the position counter. It did give us a lap time. It's almost too fast to really be able to do anything with. I don't really understand what's going on. And I noticed that oftentimes they put speedometers. This does not have one, but the other aspects of this are working so much better than I've seen before. Just mainly the actual opponent staying on track, though quite fast. I will say this is it's quite a decent result, actually. And I think this is actually worthy of, we can say that this did a very decent job of this, and I think based on that, it's worthy of actually giving it another chance to improve the game based on some of our lighthearted feedback. All right, I'm noticing a significant improvement here just based off of the actual track and these barriers. Okay, so these are the mesh colliders it's implemented, so we actually can't go off the track. We are much slower now, and I do think this is an attempt at a windshield due to the fact that there is some level of translucence there, which is nice to see, and the opponent is still correctly following the track. So I will say, just based off of opponent logic and gameplay, this is likely the best result that I've received for this. Gemini 2.5 Pro with the experimental Deep Think feature may have had a better car implementation as it had a steering wheel and things like that, but this is actually, with these mesh colliders, it's quite difficult because if you run into one, then you can't actually move. So, oh wow. All right. So being that this is a coding model, obviously there are languages beyond just like things that will load into the web. So we're asking for a 3D Python first-person shooter. This is a prompt or a variation of this that I've tested with all of the state-of-the-art models from the Frontier Labs. And when I did the head-to-head comparison video across multiple state-of-the-art models, Claude by far produced the best result for this. So I am very excited to see what ends up happening here. It does go ahead and just give us the dependencies that we will need to install in order to actually run this script, which I am just going to carelessly install without using any virtual environment or anything like that. Interesting. So we have a little issue right here. All right, one of the dependencies was just incorrectly named here, so ignore what it's doing. We're going to go ahead and try running the initial script that it came up with just to see if it works. Sometimes these take a little while to load in. All right, unfortunately, very interesting. So, oh, all right. I see some potential here for sure, but unfortunately, I'm having... So, all right. I think it's drawn the walls as the same color as like the... It's just all black, but I do believe I'm actually beating these enemies, which are appearing in these red cubes. And did we get a score there? Final score 50. So it was actually somewhat functioning, but unfortunately, it didn't seem like it was really loading a lot of the graphical elements. So maybe it is a good thing that we actually got this second version. So here's the second version that it had come up with when I mistakenly thought the dependency wasn't working. All right, and again, it is... Wow, this is extremely abstract. All right, I did lose, so the game logic is somewhat functioning. The minimap does seem to work, and we can actually hit these red boxes, which are actually the enemies. Now, interestingly, everything is working in terms of the ammunition. The score is properly iterating, and based on what we saw earlier, I can actually lose. So you can actually use like double arrow keys here. Unfortunately, the map is not really... I mean, it's probably quite obvious to understand what I'm referring to, and the health does work. So I would have expected a better result, considering that I believe it was Opus 4.1 did a better job on this or some variation of this prompt. It is, of course, possible that I gave it a lackluster prompt. However, a model of this level of intelligence, I believe, should be able to use this and come up with something rather intricate. So it did function, but I was kind of expecting something with a little more depth to the environment. I'm actually going to try that again, just in a different way, saying generate a web-based first-person shooter using any dependencies that you would like and make it amazing. So we should see this now soon. Okay, this is very interesting, and this is my mistake. I neglected to include 3D in this game, though I have to say I'm almost glad that happened, as I quite like this. It's simple, it's fun. Oh, I'm out of ammunition, so I don't see any... Oh, R to reload. Does that work? It did. And the kind of splash effects, they're almost akin to firework effects that I see here with these enemies when I absolutely slap them is it's quite good. I very much like this. This is a nice result. I know it's probably simple, but it's a pleasing result. And I suppose that is some measurable element of these actual generations, is how fun they are or how well they mesh with their creator. All right, game over. I survived 2 waves and I got a final score of 1600. I give you a final score of 1600 on this as well. This was good. Now I'm just going to edit that prompt to denote a 3D web-based FPS, as the previous one was quite good, but I neglected to say 3D, which would obviously be an additional level of immersive depth that we would want to see. Well, so unfortunately we got an error, but we do have the ability to just press try fixing with Claude, so it should go ahead and just modify and fix the issue that it had. Oh wow. Yep. Okay, now this, I mean, I'll play it before I speak, but unfortunately, I'm not able to clobber any of these enemies, but I will say the map itself, the buildings right here, and the actual, there does appear to be the tip of a barrel there, which I guess is good. The movement is very smooth as well, I noticed, and you can see the shadows being drawn here from the buildings. We did see an enemy. Now, unfortunately, it does not seem like I can shoot, or I have incorrectly understood the point of this, but my health is not going down when the enemies actually reach me, so I am thinking perhaps the actual shooting and health logic is not properly implemented. Yeah, so it should just be click to shoot, but unfortunately that's not working, and I want to see when the enemies reach me, it doesn't, it just seems like they disappear, but the score doesn't go up and I don't lose any health. Oh, I am losing health. I just lose a very minimal amount of health, so that's cool. So everything but the actual shooting logic works here. Overall, this is a cool result. Now, this may be kind of worthy of its own video, but I just want to throw it in here as well. The Imagine with Claude feature does seem really quite cool, because the prompt they actually used to generate this browser-based operating system is they said, imagine, I think, Shakespeare's computer, and it came up with this. So let's go ahead and actually try this feature. And basically, it's prompting me right here, would you like to build from your imagination? I absolutely would. So let's see what this brings us. Ooh, all right, so far I like what I'm seeing. Ask Claude to make interfaces on the fly and explore prompts in an imagined workspace. State demo is only temporary and only available on some plans. Ordinary usage limits apply. So, all right. And this is just seemingly the default screen that it brings us in. So what do you want to build? And they do have some suggestions here, which they take me to NYC in the 1980s. Seems very cool, but I don't ever want to click on default prompts, as they may be cherry picked for the best possible result. All right, so I'm asking for a 3D file browser like SGI. So this Silicon Graphics had something like this. It was seen in Jurassic Park, where it basically was a file explorer, but it was 3D. So we'll know for sure if this actually works or not. And it's basically now going to live imagine this. First impression is, I think the actual demonstration of this made it seem like it would work a little faster. I almost have to wonder if this is just somewhat similar to basically just asking the model within the web chat. Okay, let's use one of these default sample ones and just kind of try to see what we're supposed to experience with this. So it's creating a steampunk time machine interface for exploring history. I don't know that I'd call that steampunk. Okay, flux capacitor. Okay, this is getting better as it goes. I'm not going to do that. Let's just do a random date here and see what happens. And then again, it's supposed to, I believe, actually load or code on the fly here, depending on what we click. Okay, so this is going to bring us to 1885. Perhaps we can visit Doc Brown when he was sent back in the third movie. And again, this is cute, but I will say I almost wonder if this is a little gimmicky, and that again could be the actual sample prompt that was used here. So I wonder if I type in here what do you want to build, if it will go ahead and modify this. So I've just prompted it and said, write funny snippets of text describing something that occurs when our time traveler, who I've named Mega Slap Slap 8000, gets to any random date. Okay, so this is now I'm starting to actually understand and see what this is, where it just allows you to go ahead and kind of iterate upon things in a more real-time manner, I suppose. And this is definitely rather experimental, but I do see the vision here and I'm cool with it. So temporal incident, okay, we have a random date and it is now going ahead and making up random incidents that would have occurred when we actually visited that time. And it gives us, okay, accidentally activated mega slap mode. Okay, it's talking about mating calls, which, you know, I'm cool with this. All right. Okay, well, this is the diplomatic incidents one. This is cool. I'm going to try something else now. We'll start fresh. So I'm asking it to design a real-time day trading dashboard that heavily leans into meta things from the Wall Street Bet subreddit. So basically it would have lots of funny things like moon and stuff of the sort. So basically this is almost, I do have to wonder if this is a prettier artifact window, but it is more than that. It's just definitely, I almost feel like I don't have 100% grasp of this tool, but we can see in real time it is going ahead and actually building the things. And that's something different from the artifact window just through the regular Claude web chat, is we have to wait to see the result till everything is done. This is actually almost coding in the fly. So that is a neat thing about this, where it's kind of architecting this out in an interesting way where it builds it almost like, so additional things get added following. Like first it just draws the interface, then it adds more. It's kind of cool. Refresh tendies, paper hands, sell by the dip, YOLO trade. This is good. Now this is something I am quite pleased with. I'm going to go ahead and just extend this further, and then the chart failed to render, but the DOM was updated. Let's try rendering the chart again. And it can seemingly understand when things are not working and go ahead and try to fix them. So, okay, the chart exists but needs to be destroyed. Let's just go ahead and take a peek at this now. YOLO'd, sentiment feed, YOLO'd my entire savings, wife's boyfriend approved to the moon. Still holding from 300 down 90%, but time in hand, baby. This is all right. YOLO trade. Let's see what happens. So it should actually interact or update based off the YOLO trade here. Perfect. This is good. I like this a lot. Select your meme stock. Let's do BlackBerry. Oh, it didn't. Okay, because it's still. Let's wait for this to finish. Cancel. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that the Claude model actually used that. That is against some of its, like safety thing in the level 3 or whatever they mention here. How much are you willing to lose? Calls moon mission. Let's go. Execute YOLO. Let's see what happens. This is very fun. This would, imagine just having a device like this that allows, I have a great idea. YOLO status, maximum degeneracy. Welcome to the club. Wow. All right, so I have seen things here that make me believe the censorship is far less prevalent in this specific mode. So I've asked it to create a Reddit replica that I can browse, and this is essentially going to emulate this website in real time. And when we browse around it, we'll actually be able to go ahead and see an emulated AI generated internet experience. And this is the absolute, I think this is probably, I don't mean to sound like stuck up. I think this is one of the best ways to actually properly showcase this specific feature, because this gives us the proper understanding and visualization of what this is capable of, which is real-time on-the-fly generation using AI. So this is quite incredible actually, and we can see its chain of thought here, and it gives us context length information and things like that. So let's just go ahead and minimize that. Let's see what happens now. If I click the up button, it should go ahead and register an upvote. And again, everything we do here, so me clicking on an element in this window is actually prompting it then to go ahead and modify the code to reflect my action. And that's what they mean by happening in real time. I'm very, very impressed with this. And this is something that I would love to see taken on by some of the other labs. I know I mentioned it before. Google had something like this in some obscure blog post. Okay, so we could create a post, but I mean, what's first? What's the most unbelievable coincidence that happened to you? So when we click on this, we should then see a bunch of fake posts that will be generated here in answering this question. So sadly, I'm not seeing like the typical Reddit replies here where it's like funny joke, less funny joke, even less funny joke and things like that. But so let's see, can I scroll down more? Okay, I can't. So that obviously, if it were to generate this amount of comments, we would get. All right, so I'm going to be able to post here. I really kind of just lagged out when trying to think of anything creative here, but we just want to actually test this. So I just wrote test comment from Bijan, and now it has to go ahead and actually code in what it would look like with my comment placed here. I'm interested to see if it uses any pertinent information from my comment to craft my username, such as just saying like user Bijan. So we'll see what happens. All right, so unfortunately it stopped working there, but then if we go back again, it's not like caching the previous page. It's going to entirely regenerate what we would have seen, so we'll get new posts and things like that. Maybe I am incorrect. Maybe it is using a cache variation, because I do believe these are things we already saw, but it is, again, like it's programmatically rebuilding these things. All right, there's something I want to do here. Well, there's many things I'd like to do, but I unfortunately need to remember that this is kind of a family-friendly platform, so I will create an email client from 3020. This is great for prototyping and brainstorming and things like that. So I just wrote build me a videotube.co.uk. Now, this will be interesting because I want to see if it actually gives or uses any actual images for the video thumbnails that we see right here. Again, this is... The potential with this is quite large. Amazing. Nature documentary. Okay, so unfortunately it's not using any real photos right here, but it is just using icons to go ahead. This is really well done. It took me a little while to actually kind of grasp what the specific purpose of and like how to use this was, but now that we have figured that out, this is very impressive and nice to see. Let's go ahead and click on one of these videos and see what happens. Okay, and it did actually show us a URL. We have the number of likes. Dislikes are not shown, which is good. We have channel information. We have comments. It's going to give us some comments here. It's absolutely stunning. The cinematography is incredible. The wildlife footage at 8:45 is mind-blowing. And then it's giving us up next. This is, I'm probably beating a dead horse at this point, but this is extremely cool. This is extremely cool. It almost feels like going back in time to go from the imagination feature here just back to the regular web chat. I do wonder if that will represent perhaps a future trend in how we use AI, but I'm going to try a refusal/creativity test saying generate a website for Johnny's Bitcoin duplicator. I'd be shocked if this complies. Yes, okay, so we kind of assumed that this would not, but let's just see if we can gently nudge it past its guardrails. Haha, totally. But still, I could use the site. And then smiley face. So, to be expected. So, the last thing we're going to do is just generate a beautiful website for Steve's PC repair and fish market. Now, obviously, these are two things that would not normally go hand in hand, but perhaps we will get some fantastic brew of creativity in this generated result. Okay, and then we kind of get a Steve's PC Repair and Fish Market, where technology meets fresh seafood. Your one-stop shop for tech and fresh catch. Get in touch today. All right, we have hover effects. Everything's clean and nice. There are no real photos, which is disappointing, but fresh fish market, PC repair services, about Steve's. What started as two separate passions has become one unique business. Visit us today. We have a fake location, 555 Fish Tech hours, and then serving the community with bytes and bytes since 2015. Oh man. Shameful pun. I suppose to sum this up, the model in and of itself is relatively impressive. However, I don't know that just based off of the raw results we received from testing it in the actual chat web interface that I would be totally blown away were that the only thing that was released here. It is solid, and it arguably did a better job in the 3D racing game prompt than any other model, just based off the fact that the opponent actually adhered to the track and did properly move without going haywire. However, the real impressive thing to me here that I am totally enamored with, and again, I want to kind of reiterate, like, I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm not sponsored. This is just me testing these things, which I'm actually paying for. I'm paying $100 a month for the Claude subscription. And Claude Agent SDK we didn't really look at, but it would be worthy and cool. This bonus research preview, this Imagine with Claude, was very cool. And once I actually got the hang and figured out, like, okay, this is how you actually kind of would use this, it was great. It really was kind of a new way to use AI to come up with fun things. And I think the possibilities for this are multifold, where basically you could use it for inspiration, you can use it for fun and entertainment, or perhaps other use cases that I can't really think of that other folks will be able to figure out. So overall, I will say it's a decent release. Obviously, the model shows a improvement just based off the benchmarks and things of that sort, but I am very, very enamored with this bonus research preview, Imagine with Claude. So with that, that is going to go ahead and conclude this video. If you like what you saw, feel free to get me past Anthropic in terms of the amount of subscribers they have on YouTube, and I would very much appreciate it. And any questions, leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching.